Welcome in, everybody, to a special Farzy Show edition here with Thiago Scabbia of thepaintedlines.com. We're going to be talking all things NBA draft for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, giving you some reaction. Thiago, how you been, man?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me again. Excited to talk about the Sixers. It's been an exciting last 24 hours. Not the way we planned the draft to go, but great nonetheless.
It was wild. I can't remember a time where a team that I pull for, a team that I root for, quite frankly, had a later pick in the first round, and I was still sitting on the edge of my seat with great anticipation as to what they were going to do, all because of the rumors surrounding Daryl Morey, the stuff that fed into it regarding Kyle Lowry, or not Kyle Lowry, Kyrie Irving and everything. So there was a lot of anticipation. How did the night go for you?
We had done a ton of work scouting around some names in the NBA draft through the Painted Lines, the website, and the YouTube channel that we kind of have a lot of videos on. We had a group of names we were focused on, but those names kind of fell early in the draft. So for us, it was a situation at that point. It was like, okay, what is Morey going to do next? And I thought he nailed it, man. I thought he got the best of both worlds. I mean, we can talk about it in more detail, but I think to get a player that can contribute right away, who's young, who can play both ends of the court, that is not something you can say a lot of teams can get out of the draft at pick 23. So I thought for me, like he was an expectation that perhaps the Sixers could land on something that they could plug in right away. And I thought Morey did exactly that last night. So kudos to him.
Yeah, did you have something that was going to play out? Did you have a prediction that they were going to eventually trade the rights to that 23rd pick and essentially draft for another team like they did last night?
Yeah, so we had a couple names. So we had Jaden Hardy as a name that we thought they could potentially draft and keep. A shot maker out of the G League, showed tremendous potential. He was on the board. Tari Eason was another wing that had high potential, but he went like pick 17, 18 around that range. So when it got to 23, I think our predictions at that point, myself included, was that they were probably going to move that pick for somebody else. Now, was De'Anthony Melton that nobody had any idea, to be honest, because he has shown he was a rotational piece for Memphis. So for Memphis to put him out there as a trade piece was kind of surprising. So, yeah, but to expect that to happen last night just came out of left field.
Yeah, he's got a great reputation as a guy that obviously plays the hard-nosed basketball, plays both ends of the court. But I have to be honest, the first thing that jumped to mind was, I believe it was the playoffs this past year, the missed dunk opportunity he had where he basically skyscraped and then just couldn't throw it down. And for a 6'2" guy, when you see him get up that high, it is pretty impressive. But what do you see in Melton, and what do you think he brings to the table here in Philadelphia?
So first and foremost is the athleticism piece, right? We all watch the Sixers. The team is just getting slower and older by the second. And I thought that it was very important, first and foremost, they injected some youth, some athleticism on their roster. Melton's only 24 years old. Now, if you think about it, Thibault's 26. So even though Melton's been in the league for a very long time, he's still a very young, affordable piece that they can bring in and plug in right away. What I love about Melton, first and foremost, if you think about the Sixers bench, right? Niang plays offense but doesn't play defense. Thibault plays defense but doesn't play offense. Melton does both things. So he can come off the bench and you can keep him both offensively and defensively on the court, which opens up an entire different level of flexibility for Doc Rivers to work with. He's a tremendous shooter, and I started pulling up some numbers around Melton that I kind of want to share with you. So he averaged 8.1 three-pointer attempts per 36 minutes, 8.1 three-pointer attempts per 36 minutes. That would be the highest volume of anybody on the Sixers. Niang averaged about 8.0. So it gives you an idea of the type of player that he is, right? High volume three-point shooter, similar to what Niang does. Second thing, I think it's really important piece is he averages 10% rebounding rate, which is 7th among all NBA guards. We all watch the Sixers. They could not rebound a lick. This is one of the highest rebounding guards in the NBA, which is going to be a welcome addition to this team. And then the last thing I thought was very interesting, 4.5 deflections per 36 minutes. That's third most in the NBA. The names above them are Matisse Thybulle and Gary Payton. So high activity on defense, great rebounder, high volume three-point shooter. Those are the things that Morey wanted to attack last night. And I thought he checked off all the boxes.
I mean, just to get a guy, first off, in the overall philosophy, I wasn't about to sit there and wait for another guy to develop because that guy's not helping Joel Embiid tomorrow attempt to win a championship. So for the overall philosophy, I love what the Sixers did last night. I love what Daryl Morey did last night and all that. But the thing that did jump out to me was you mentioned the rebounds. I think it was 4.5 rebounds per game, and he's only averaging last year around 22 minutes per game. I thought to myself, James Harden's a pretty good rebounding guard. But this is a guy you're going to be bringing off the bench to spell some minutes of your starting guards with Maxey and also James Harden. You're going to be keeping that going, that rebounding habit by your guards, even when he's in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really important, man. I mean, the Sixers got crushed on the glass by Miami in particular. He brings an element of toughness that when you watch him play, it's going to be a welcome addition. They're talking about, for instance, PJ Tucker potentially being an addition to this team, right? First thing they mentioned is PJ Tucker's toughness. This guy brings that same level of toughness on the glass. We all watch Memphis, a grinded out defensive team, offensive team, and he's going to bring a lot of that to the Sixers bench and also to the starting lineup. Because like I said, to your point, I do think there is a world where he can spot some starting minutes for Maxey and give him some rest throughout the regular season. James Harden's getting older, right? So games where you want to sit Harden, you have Maxey be your point guard and Melton slot in as your shooting guard. So there's a lot to work with there, man, both, as a starter, as a bench piece. But I think to your point, that rebounding toughness element that the Sixers, it was evident they were missing against Miami. It was night and day, two different teams on the court. He's going to bridge some of that gap for sure.
We're speaking with Thiago Scabbia. You guys can follow him at thepaintedlines.com. Also follow him on Twitter as well at Thiago PHL. Thiago, when you look at this team right now, does this mean that they're out on PJ Tucker, or is that still very much in the works, you think?
Yeah, so Morey hinted a little bit about what's coming up next, right? And the PJ Tucker piece, some other dominoes need to fall into place. They need to clear up some cap room to make that happen. If you're to ask me, would you go through that kind of jump into the hoops to get PJ Tucker? I'm not a huge PJ Tucker fan, to be perfectly honest with you. He had a phenomenal year with Miami. It was clear that he had taken a step up with his shooting, playing both ends of the court. But 37, 22,000 plus minutes career-wise, that's a lot of mileage. And if you were to look at PJ Tucker going back to prior to last year, the previous 4 seasons, he did not shoot the ball very well at all. So it could be a situation where last year was kind of more of like an outlier. And then are the Sixers paying for a 37, 38-year-old guy who's not shooting the ball well, who's another step slower? And at that point, you're back to that, slow roster kind of thing that we talked about. They need to kind of get fixed. So I think they're going to settle more smaller margin moves, mid-level guys, minimum guys. And there's some names out there that they can definitely target. I think it would be phenomenal additions to the team for sure.
Now, you don't think the Bradley Beals of the world are in the works for something like this?
Nah, I don't think. At least, I mean, I don't know. It's Daryl Morey, man. Daryl Morey.
No, I
something of his league. I could never say never on anything with Daryl Morey.
I agree. I would say that the thing the Sixers are looking to do now, they're still looking to get a wing. He just came out and said that last night, as a matter of fact, or early this morning, I should say, after the draft. But I think the number one thing they're depending on is James Harden being 100% healthy and Tyrese Maxey. I don't think it's possible for him to take another giant leap forward like he did from year 1 to year 2. I think he will still take a big step forward from year 2 to year 3, but it seems like Harden's health and Maxey's improvement are the two things they're really banking on in order to take that next step forward as a team.
That's exactly it. It's got to start with Harden. What are you getting out of Harden besides the playmaking? We all know the playmaker that he is, the passing, the vision, the IQ. That's not going to go away. I mean, that's still going to be a thing with James Harden for the rest of his career. But he's got to get in better shape. That's first and foremost. You can't come into training camp at the weight that you're at the level that you're at, first and foremost. And then coming back into shape, which I think he will. There's money on the table for him to kind of enjoy, and for him to not take care of that would be a little bit crazy, to say the least. But assuming that he comes back into shape, then what is the player that you're getting? Because was the fact that he looked a little bit slower a function of his own lack of shape, or is it just the age thing that coming into play?
Right.
I am hopeful. We talked a little bit about this last time we talked. I'm hopeful that Harden is going to develop into a playmaker, on the ball, off the ball player. So working a little bit more off the ball with Maxey as your point guard, shooting off the catch, getting open looks that way. He's a very good shooter. He just has to lean in more on that off the catch, off the ball shooting guard type role. And I think working between shooting guard, point guard with Maxey, not even taking a leap, but being the same type of level Maxey that he was last year, I think the Sixers have a phenomenal backcourt recipe to complement Embiid. And I think that's really the play moving forward. But to your point, they can still fill out the roster a little bit more.
All right. Let's move away from the Sixers. Still one more guy I want to ask you about, but can we just point and laugh for a second at the Brooklyn Nets? Because they put together a team that was supposed to be a dynasty, at least compete for championships, and they really haven't done that with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the former James Harden. And now, not only does Kyrie look like he wants out, and the Sixers on his list, Kevin Durant could possibly want out as well, although that'd be a little tougher for him. But Ben Simmons could somehow magically all of a sudden find his only teammate there in Brooklyn to be a big old bag of karma. And that would be fun for all of us here in Sixerville. How do you think that whole situation with the Brooklyn Nets plays out?
Well, I think it's pretty crazy that the Nets, first and foremost, are not willing to pay Kyrie Irving because, to your point, the moment that Kyrie Irving domino falls, everything else is going to fall into place, and you're left with Ben Simmons and nothing around him. And I'm actually a big Ben Simmons basketball fan. I actually like the player, even though he has his flaws. But there's no way you can tell me Ben Simmons can be a centerpiece of a Brooklyn Nets team without another star player. And there's a pathway moving forward. There's no way. So I think the Nets need to pay Kyrie Irving, even though you're paying for a ton of nonsense that comes with it. But in the case that they don't, I mean, as a Sixers fan, you got to love it because that's one less team you got to worry about. And if KD leaves your conference, that is a massive win, man, because Kevin Durant is a problem. It is a big problem to try to get over Kevin Durant. So as a Sixers fan, you got to be excited. And the fact that Kyrie mentioned the Sixers as one of the teams that he would get traded for, which adds a whole different level of complexity to the storyline. And I wonder what Sixers fan would think if Kyrie and Philly became a marriage all of a sudden.
Yeah, I will say this. There's one part of me that really wants to see Kyrie as a member of the Sixers, and that's Kyrie Irving playing in Boston with a Sixers jersey on. Like, there's something about that I find just so enticing. And also, he's a pretty good basketball player, but I just don't trust him. And after the whole Ben Simmons thing, to follow up on the Ben Simmons thing, we're like, if Ben Simmons is on a team with nobody else, does he shoot then? Is that possible? Is that when the game would develop a little bit, or no?
I am pretty sure you'll find out other reasons not to shoot. One reason out there that you can pinpoint as to why you're not going to shoot the basketball.
two things with the Sixers now. Is there somebody else that you're tracking the Sixers might be interested in? A guy that could be potentially coming to Philadelphia to be that wing player that Daryl Morey's still looking for?
Yes, absolutely. So 2 names, but one name that I really love is Taurean Prince out of Minnesota. I don't know if you've seen much of him. He used to play with Brooklyn, did a lot of stuff in Brooklyn, was trying to do some point guard stuff, some wing stuff, went to Minnesota. They reduced his role. Like, listen, man, you're going to play defense, you're going to shoot open 3-point shots. That's it. You're not doing anything else on the basketball court. You watch him in Minnesota, man, completely different player. 6'7", 6'8", 220. That bigger wing that I think the Sixers need off the bench. Plays defense. So you think about Niang, right? Niang is a phenomenal shooter, phenomenal offensive piece, but he gets exposed a lot defensively. Now you have somebody off the bench that can ease some of that load on Niang, take Niang out in certain situations where you need some defensive kind of push. Can give you some starting minutes as small forward, right? So the Sixers now have a vacancy with Danny Green being part of that Melton trade. So, do you put Thibault there right now? Is Thibault going to get traded? You have an opening there. Perhaps Isaiah Joe takes the step. But regardless, he's a guy that you can potentially give every now and then a starting spot as small forward. I love it, man. We all watch the playoffs. What wins? Perimeter shooting, perimeter shot making. The Sixers need defenders on the perimeter. They got Thibault. Now they got Melton. If they get Prince, I think they're well on their way to being a very, very stout defensive team.
What about this Champagny guy? Sixers sign him. He's a wing player. He's a 6'8" guy that you just mentioned a second ago, Julian Champagny out of St. John's. Just from a glance, and what I remember about him with St. John's is he was a catch and release guy. Can he be a guy that will develop into a solid NBA player?
I like it. I like him a lot. I mean, we were talking about it before the show. You watched him. I think we got the same conclusion with him. I'm surprised he was not drafted because he's such a smooth shooter. He averaged, again, not from the numbers that I pulled, 9 times last year, 4 or more three-point makes in college, which is a pretty high number. So you can tell that very, very good shooter out of St. John's, plays defense, was second in the Big East in steals. I think the Sixers have a potential kind of 3-and-D player at that level, the kind of player that Morey loved to get in Houston, very cheap contract. So, but the question is, are they willing to develop him not only at the G League, but give him some spot minutes with the Sixers? That's something that we've seen with Doc Rivers is not something he has an appetite for. He tends to rely more on veteran players, but I think they absolutely made a good choice there with that undrafted free agent spot that they had available. So I'll be interested to see, man. I'll be going down to the G League for a couple of times this year. There's Jaden Springer down there, Julian Champagny now, Charles Bassey. So it's going to be a fun G League group down in Delaware for sure.
Sounds good. And this will be the last thing I ask you, Thiago. Likelihood of Kyrie Irving joining the 76ers?
Likelihood, I would say 25%. Now, how much do I want him with the Sixers? 75%. Because to your point.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I would love Kyrie. I would absolutely love Kyrie. I think he would create all kinds of fun scenarios. The Boston thing you talked about, absolutely fun things ahead. But I don't think he's coming here.
Oh, have you and Doc talked recently? You and your good buddy Doc Rivers? Has that happened? Have you guys gotten together, had a beer or so?
No, but I got a restraining order with his name on it. So.
It was a great piece. If people haven't checked it out, it is still pinned on your Twitter, which is a fine piece. So make sure you guys check out Thiago Scabbia. Scabbia, you can check him out right there on Twitter, and of course at thepaintedlines.com as well. Thiago, and also YouTube channel as well, thepaintedlines.com. You guys can check out some of the videos of some of the draft prospects, and guys are going to be looking to crack in the NBA as well, right?
Absolutely. And we also just rolled out a De'Anthony Melton highlight reel. So if you're trying to understand a little bit more about De'Anthony Melton, go check it out. There's a ton of content in there. So.
Fantastic. Thiago, I appreciate you joining me on this draft special, giving us your reaction to the 76ers draft night. Pick number 23 overall. They ended up trading away to get a guy that can help lead their second unit off the bench. Thiago, great catching up with you, man. Thanks so much.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thiago Scabbia joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Make sure you check out all his stuff at paintedlines.com. That's the Draft Reaction Show. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm Marc Farzetta for Thiago Scabbia from the Farzy Show.